as a parent, I don't know about you, but I'm like, oh, I don't like, I want to help you. I want to make it go away. You don't want to see your kid in distress, but at the same time, it can't go away. So like one of the things I've brought up in this latest one is that all feelings are visitors and they're not meant to hang around forever. But if you spend all your energy trying to fight the feeling going away, number one, it will come back and it'll come back with a vengeance. It's like almost like putting a plaster over like an infected wound. It's going to come back. And for me, it's about going, okay, sadness is here. All right. So you know what? Just welcome it in. It's here to tell you what you need. It's almost like a superpower. It's here to tell you what you need. It's here to tell you what you care about. And there's a reason it's here. Fine. And often what the book's about is if you sit with it and you're kind to it, eventually you'll find out what you need. And then the sadness will be on its way and it will see itself out.
Hi, I'm Carla. You're listening to Free to Be Curious. I've named this podcast after the values of freedom and curiosity. These inform and motivate the self-directed lifestyle choices that my family and I enjoy. I hope my guests inspire you as much as they inspire me. Welcome back to the Free to Be Curious podcast. We post weekly and we record our podcasts in the Riverside.fm online recording studio, and we use Buzzsprout to host our RSS feed. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, Amazon, and YouTube. Hit subscribe on our YouTube channel and click the bell icon to be notified when new episodes are released. Head on over to my website and sign up for our newsletter too, as that way you'll stay up to date with all our releases, promos, discount codes, and more. Join me on these socials, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. All of these links are in the description below and in the show notes. My guest today is Ashley J. Ashley is a qualified child and adolescent psychologist with a master's degree in educational psychology and a postgraduate diploma in gifted child education. She runs a private practice, is the consulting psychologist for 2 private schools within the King David system, and is also an author, having published a series of children's books that provide tools for kids to cope with challenging feelings such as anxiety, anger, perseverance, and more. Ashley is here to share more about her work and her writing. Ashley, welcome.
Thank you. You made me sound very impressive. Thank you.
You are. You are very impressive. So maybe let's start off just by chatting about your career as a psychologist. What made you choose that path, and what especially drew you to working with children and gifted children?
I wish I had like an inspirational story for you as to why I wanted to become a psychologist. I don't. It's always been there. I've just always been interested in people. And I've always been interested in figuring out what makes them tick. It was never from a sense of like, I want to help everyone. Obviously, you don't get into that profession if you don't. But honestly, it was more out of a selfish interest at the time of being 20 years old and going, this is amazing. And in terms of working with kids, I just feel that when you are upskilling a kid and you are helping them right from the beginning, often the problems that may develop in adulthood either won't be as severe or they won't be there at all. And when kids, I'm not saying kids must be therapized, but when kids are able to have emotional expression and the ability to articulate themselves, they become these adults with very high EQ and often able to gain insight and understanding and compassion for themselves as adults. And I'm not necessarily saying they need to have therapy for this. I'm just saying when you have all sorts of avenues that can help him self-actualize in this way, that's why I really am into working with kids. I do work with older kids now and adolescents. If it needs to be like a younger child, like under the age of 5, I work with their parents. And then if I feel like, because often I'll work with their parents and then that's it, like it's actually fine and it's a systemic change. But if I feel that now it's time, they actually do need some therapeutic intervention, then I'll refer them to a specialist who works under 5. But otherwise I work with older kids and adolescents and parents and young adults, and parenting is actually my fave thing to do.
Yeah, you can tell in the way that you talk about it that there's so much meaning in that work for you. And then what inspired you to move from your work as a psychologist and branch out into writing stories for kids and specifically these books that you did write?
So writing's always been there. I've always enjoyed writing. I didn't know if it was any good or not, but it's just something I've always enjoyed from when I was a child. And there are certain books in my childhood that stand out for me. Not necessarily emotional literacy books, but just ones that had meaning for me in some way. And I'd been playing around with this idea of writing these types of books for a while, but you actually have to get yourself to do it. And the one day I just thought, right, I have an idea and I'm just going to sit down and do it. My main inspiration was actually, I don't care if no one else reads them. I want to write them for my kids. And I would love to just sit with them and be able to, the book is to them anyway, and sit with them and read to them and just know that I've given them something, like something from my heart as their mom, not as a therapist, as their mom. And my kids love them, but they're probably biased. But I decided, you know what, like I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm not doing it I don't need the recognition, and it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's absolutely fine. I just know that the majority of it is going to extend a wonderful message, I would hope. And there's no harm in that. You don't have to love it, but it's certainly not harming anybody. And I just decided, I had an idea. The first one was Susie and the Worry Elephant. I had an idea and I thought, I deal with so much anxiety in my practice. Yeah, and from parents, from kids, whatever. And I thought, what I started doing with each book is I started looking at what am I getting presented with the most at the moment, and let me try and write something about that. So it started with anxiety. I mean, you could write 40,000 books on anxiety, but I decided that that's where I'm going to start. And then it kind of evolved to, I'm seeing this and I'm seeing that, and I'll write that book and that book. And I love it. It's also one of my fave.
Yeah, it is. We are quite obsessed with these books as a family. And a few things that you've mentioned that I wanted to pick up on is, one, you could write 40,000 books about anxiety, or you could just write the one correct one. Like, I love having a lot of books, but if there's one that gets the message across, and we're going to talk about what that message is in a beautiful way that is understandable for everyone involved, you only need the one. And the other thing I was going to say is, I'm also really into reading to my kids as a way of bonding and connection. So the gift of a book is like priceless, and especially one that's got this. They're beautiful stories, beautiful illustrations, but they also have emotional literacy, as you described it. Which, I mean, I'm only learning now, like at 37. Feels so dense most of the time. Like literally, I'm like, very dense. Like, what am I doing? And so I think that, having done it from such a place of love for wanting to share this information, and also taking from your practice what you knew, you've come up with such a beautiful concept for everyone. So we love them. We love them, and we pick up on that desire that you had to share what you know.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so maybe we can just go a little bit deeper into what the books are. I'm sure everybody's wondering what these books are. And you mentioned Susie and the Worry Elephant, which was your first book. So what is the idea behind that, the meaning, and also can you talk to us about the practical application? Because each book has got these tools for kids to use to have a practical way of dealing with that anxiety or anger or struggling to persevere. So can we talk about that?
Obviously, I'm not going to write something clinical. And it's actually, someone actually asked me the one day, is it difficult to write these books? I said, yes, because you've got to have like a whimsical story that actually makes the kid want to read it, not you should feel like this or whatever. Plus, it's got to have the right illustrations, because who wants to look at a book with yuck illustrations? But you're also trying to get a message across embedded in the writing without making it sound preachy. Yes. And it's not so easy. I'm not saying other children's books are easy to write. I'm sure they're not. But I just thought, wow, like this is quite a lot. So what I try and do is I think of what I'm trying to say, the certain lessons that I want to put across. I make sure I have those lessons in front of me, and then I think, right, I'm going to weave a story around those lessons and then integrate them into that story, so that they're all there, but they sound fun to read about. And I chose an elephant because, for the longest time, I've used that analogy of an elephant on your chest when I'm talking to kids, and that heavy, heavy feeling. And I mean, I've struggled with anxiety, and I literally feel like that. And I find when you use non-threatening things to describe something to a child, like a benevolent animal, something that's wonderful and friendly, it makes the feeling not feel so scary, and it normalizes it for them. And to go, I've also had an elephant on my chest, and they're going, oh, I didn't know that. So elephants, look, they're my favorite animal. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use an elephant, and it came out of, honestly, I can see myself doing this. I sat down one day on my patio. I kept tossing around this title in my mind. And then I thought, right, build it. And I sat and I wrote it. And obviously I wrote it again, and up and down and up and down. But it was my passion project. And again, like I said to you, I didn't care where it went. I just needed to know I could do it. And for me, I mean, all the books encompass this, but I'm a believer in, yes, I'm a therapist, but when kids are going through something, it's not always necessary for them to have therapy. Now, I'm not saying therapy is very important. It always depends on the level of severity, and there's a lot of kids that need it, and adolescents and whatever. But I'm saying there's certain kids that are actually reacting normally to an abnormal situation, or they just have normal anxiety is a normal feeling, normal feelings that they are struggling to manage. It doesn't always mean that they have to go straight into therapy. There's other avenues of doing it. And what I find is, I hate being called an expert or any of that. I hate it, because I think to myself, no, the parents are actually experts on their own kids. What they need is some upskilling, and they need some, I'm a big believer in skills. So I'm not saying you mustn't have theoretical insight and all that. I'm just saying, as a parent myself, I want to know what to do in that moment. I don't want to think about brain chemistry. Help me. What must I say in that moment? And for me, this is what the books represent, because it's talking about this benevolent, beautiful animal that also, it's also saying that that's representing anxiety, but it's not there to scare you. It's there to let you know something's up. And instead of saying anxiety, which feels very clinical, you can say, there's Louis here. Louis the elephant is here. He's sitting on my chest. He's trying to let me know something. And obviously Louis is also illustrated in a way. He's super cute. He's non-threatening. He's wonderful. I wish he was real. And I feel like if I was a kid, I actually always try and take myself back, not like inner child, but I try and take myself back and go, I would have completely related to this. And to be honest with you, my kids are like my guinea pigs. I read it to them and I'm like, does this make sense to you? Because they are my target audience. So if my daughter or son had to turn and go, I have no idea what you're talking about, I would fix it. And she got it. I actually started reading it to her from when she was 3. And of course, there's certain abstract things she didn't quite pick up. Within quite a short space of time, she would say to me, Louise here, I don't feel so nice. And we would discuss it. And she still does it, which is, it's wonderful. And what I love about what you said, when you said that you love the books, I love hearing feedback from parents, but one of my favorite things is when they tell me what it did for their kid. And I can't tell you how many voice notes and messages I've gotten from kids. Their parents go, tell Ashley what you think, and this really helped me, and I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. And it just makes me feel like you've put some good out into the world, and without sounding wishy-washy, I do feel that I've put good out, and it can go on a wider scale than just individual therapy all the time. And yes, there are some fabulous children's books out there that deal with emotional literacy and expression. Some of them make me feel incredibly inadequate. I look at some of them and I'm like, oh, I wish I'd written that. But anyway, it's like that jealousy. But I just feel like it's never going to cause harm. You're putting out good, you're giving skills, and if anything, all that's going to do is empower people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, to feel inadequate to what else is out there is normal. But I think the difference with your books is that they are so practical. So they're not we're talking about such abstract concepts as feelings, and they bring it down. I don't know if you've got a copy of Susie and the Worry Elephant near you, but ours is with a friend at the moment. It's okay. I brought the other two.
I can run.
No. I brought the other two because I just wanted to show people. No. I wanted to show you just how beautiful the illustrations are. We're going to talk about.
I love them. I'm obsessed.
I think that's one of the things that sets the book apart is how the writing married the illustrations, and it's market. Yeah. Perfectly. Yeah. So also we read so many great books. We have a rule, if a book is junk, basically it slowly finds its way out the door. Yeah. And I started to feel bad about that because some books were disappearing and the kids wanted them. So we still have a few that are torture for me to read.
Yes.
But we have to pump up the good books, you know, and
Yes. Yes.
so the illustrations really help that. They really do. So yeah, I love the
that
illustrations.
was something that I was so specific about because I had a vision in my head. Very luckily, my illustrator is a genius, and the collaboration. She often will draw something. I'm like, yeah, that's it, without me even, like, I didn't even think about it. She's amazing. And she said to me when I first met her, it was like the universe put us together, because she said, gosh, I wish I'd had books like this as a kid. And she'd actually done illustrations of feelings of her own accord, and things that, like, creatures that represented feelings. And when I explained to her the type of illustrations that I want, and, like, I won't lie, I did show her 1 or 2 children's books. I'm like, not that one, not that. I don't like that. I
there's
like
a certain
this.
style.
And she'd be like, I get it. Yes, there's a style that I think that's what speaks to the kids, and that's what draws them in.
Right. So it's a mixture. It's not too cartoony, and it's representative of real, but with a beautiful way of doing it. And Louis, like you said, he's benevolent. For everyone who's going to meet Louis in Susie and the Warrior Elephant, he starts out like quite big, and then he slowly just becomes like a smaller friend that is with her. So I just love that. Okay, so that's Susie and the Warrior Elephant, which was your first, and it's still one of our favorites. That's why I don't have it at the moment, because it's part of the book club. So, and also we gifted
That's so nice.
My son's facilitator at his learning center a set, and she was like, I need another 3.
So nice.
I like it. I need another 3. So, you know, it's spreading.
Makes me so happy.
And so what about the other animals and other characters? There was the next one, Toby and the Angry Bull. Is that the next one in this series? So this is Toby and the Angry Bull. And tell us more about Toby before I start talking about my feelings.
So anger started coming out a lot, but anger also connects to anxiety quite a lot, because I feel like so many parents think that anxiety, for example, shows itself in its rawest forms, like crying or a panic attack, whatever. Actually, it often comes out in a defensive coping mechanism like anger. Because if I said to you, Carla, you have a choice when you're feeling anxious to feel sad and helpless, which is a legitimate course, that's fine, or do you want to get irritable and angry? Most kids or people are even going to pick the latter, because it makes them feel more powerful over the situation. So I cannot tell you how many kids I've had who they've got anger issues. I'm like, they do, but it's actually symptomatic of something else. Not always, but often. And all I used to think about is a charging bull. It's, you know, and that's saying a bull in a china shop. That's literally what I used to think about. And I've got a thing about the name Toby. I don't know why. I don't know why. I've just written story. Don't ask me. I can't even. That's why I wish I had these magical answers. I was like, I just like it.
Works though.
Very
it
basic.
Works.
Yeah, it's basic.
It's just
and
right.
Yeah, I just love it, and I liked how it sounded, and I just liked again, Boris the bull is, and I like that I didn't want to just be like the elephant, the bull, the goose. They must have names. They must have names. And I didn't want to make him scary, but I did want to show, like, anger it's big and it's overpowering, and it can make you feel out of control. And sure, we really, I'll tell you, the longest part of doing these books are the illustrations. I do like the small bit of the writing, and then the illustrations and the planning of each verse, because you've got to, or each paragraph rather, you've really got to, it's got to come out right. And things of like, he mustn't look too angry. I don't want him to look scary. I don't want him to look, do you know what I mean? So it takes forever. This was a particularly, it's funny because Susie felt a lot easier, but anger, you've got to really look at it from all angles. The things that I talk about in the book where it's not about him not feeling anger, it's about rerouting it into something healthy. The punching of the pillow, sitting in the tent, tearing up paper, talking, all the rest of it. It's stuff that I've told kids in my practice. And we do it. And it works. So again, it's like I test it out and then it works. But also kids have given me ideas. Kids have said to me, I don't want to do the pillow, I got a punching bag. I'm like, that's great. She's like, I'll put a face on it and then I think about who I want to punch. I'm like, cool, just, you know. Yeah, and I love that, again, like my kids, and the kids that I consult with at Mini Burton and at Waverley, they'll say, oh, my Boris is here. He's here and he just wants to slam everything. I'm like, okay, cool, I get it. So he's like you say, he starts off big and then he gets small. He gets small, and they are friends at the end of the day. He's not there to scare you.
Right. I love that part. And I think that's what resonated so much with me and my son, is that we each came up with our own animal. And so I'm like horrified at my animal. It's a hippo. I'm a hippo when I'm angry. Hippo is the most dangerous animal on earth. There are more deaths from hippos.
They run at 30 k's an hour.
They're fascinating.
Yes.
We then went and researched hippos in detail, and like they can't even be shot by like a gun. They'll survive.
No, they are.
They're called bulls as well. They are called bulls. So I'll say to everyone, guys, my hippo is about to break down the fence. And that fence, I feel like the fence is my emotional intelligence. And when I'm tired, overwhelmed, stressed, the fence is just like collapsing. And the hippo is about to run out and attack everyone.
Yes.
So,
and the kids get it. They love it. They go, "Ooh, Mommy's hippo."
Yeah, I'm like, the hippo's about to come out. It's not your fault, my boy, that I didn't sleep and I'm overstretched, but this is where I'm at.
But you need to know. You need to know.
And now he started telling his sister that his leopard is going to come out because she's playing with his Lego, not the Lego he said she could play with, the other Lego.
Yes.
And it's my leopard. My leopard is coming out. And then we all know, like, here's the information.
Exactly.
And we learned it from this book.
And also, I think what's so wonderful about that, he doesn't just have to act on the behavior. He can almost give you a warning signal by telling you that the leopard's coming out. So it also means that you aren't just going to react to the behavior. You're going to react to the feeling behind the behavior. And that's my whole thing. When an adult or a child feels like you've looked behind it and they feel understood, the behavior tends to dissipate a little bit anyway. Because I always equate it to, like, imagine you came home, you've had a horrible day at work, and your husband says to you, and you're just snappy and you're not being particularly pleasant, and he's like, "What's wrong with you? Like, why are you being like this?" He's addressing your behavior. What's going to happen? You're in attack mode. You're like, "No, I'm going to kill you." Like you're in attack mode. If he had to look at you though and look behind it, he'd be like, "Are you all right? Like, you don't seem like yourself. Is there something I can do to help you relax a little bit?" That's going, someone has seen me. Yes. You've seen me. You're not just looking at the surface stuff. Same with kids. Exactly the same. He needs his leopard. He's telling you.
This is why we actually need these skills as a parent. Like, I'm often reflecting at what did I learn at school up until basically becoming a parent. I'm confused about what did I learn. I learned no emotional intelligence at all.
No.
And then you've got another life to look after, and there's no, there's no skill set given to you. We joke like, there's no training to become a parent, and it's a joke, but actually there's nothing, and we would benefit. Our kids and ourselves would benefit. So I feel like it's been a self-directed path in this way, and whenever something comes along, that's a tool that we can use. I'm thrilled. Like, we are consuming
more resources, the better.
The stuff that you've given us, quite devotedly. So that's Toby and the Angry Bull. And like Ashley said, I like the way you said you've got to get across quite a lot of stuff in a concise way because it's short. So you've got to kind of jam-pack every page with meaning, and it is. And there's a beautiful... there's a beautiful rhyming scheme now and again in your books, which we love.
Yes.
So, this is one of my favorites.
That also makes it hard.
Definitely. But, guys, here's this bull.
Yes.
Like meditating.
There he is. Oh, meditating. Yeah.
A meditating bull.
I did think of that. I just want to own that and give myself credit because Sinead is a genius, but I was like, make him meditate. I'm very proud of myself.
And the back of the book's also one of my favorites where you're sitting with your friend. Your feeling is your friend. It's a reminder for us. Yeah, so
and they each have the same thing. Each book has a back like that, a bench or a beach or whatever.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we move on? Is there anything else you want to say more about Boris and Toby and the Angry Bull on that topic?
It's a great book.
It's a superb book. Practically, application-wise, the takeaway is that it gives us skills to cope with when we're feeling angry. Punching a pillow, tearing up paper, going and sitting in a quiet space. We've learned from that.
Or think of your own. That's also fine.
Yes.
And the other thing I just wanted to bring up, I've been asked about the size of the books a lot. So if you go I was actually in a bookstore yesterday because I'm always looking at what other people are doing. And like, where's their gap? Where's their gap? And they're always big children's books. I get why they are. I totally get it. But one of the reasons I actually made it that size is because it's portable. Because it's difficult to kind of like schlep that big book with you. Not to say you wouldn't. I'm just saying, I know for me as a mom, when you've got 40 million things that you're carrying, like if my kid was struggling, I could put that in my bag.
That's true.
And no one would, they could put it in their bag, in their school bag or whatever. Sometimes they just need like a comfort or whatever. And that's why I did it that size.
Yeah, the size.
So I just wanted to
I like the size. Also, I like the size that I could read it with one hand if I'm holding a kid.
Yes.
So the very big books are great, but I need two hands. So I'm always like squashing their head against me. And they're like, Mom, you're squashing me. I'm like, but I have to turn the page.
Yes. I can't see. I can't see. Yeah,
so there's a lot of shenanigans with the reading to the kids, especially if you're doing it a lot, you know. So, I love it. Okay, so the third one in this series is Charlie and the Give Up Goose.
And
Let me give it front and center stage.
So
this one,
cover.
Am I right? It's about how to persevere when you feel like you just can't anymore. And what's that feeling when you just can't? It's a give up feeling, but there's a better word for it. Like just despondent or something.
Like it's like, I've had enough.
That's
and I think it also, so I see a lot of this as well. And one of the things that one of the schools that I work at, we did a whole thing on growth mindset by Carol Dweck. And I love the growth mindset because there are very key concepts from there. I mean, there's many, but the key concepts that I took out of there, I put in this book. So things like, you know, when we were kids, you'd say, I can't do this, and your parents would go, we don't use I can't in this house. And you're like, cool, but I legitimately feel like I can't do this. Like, help me. So what she says is the power of yet. I haven't got it quite yet, which means there will be a future where you do have it. And it might sound very like, you know, new age or whatever, but it's the truth. Let them say I can't. Okay, but then also let's reframe it. Things like grit. This book is also based on that, to be like, you're not going to get everything perfectly the first time. And also the perfect thing is a separate thing, which I'll talk about now. But like there are times it's going to suck and there's times it's going to be hard. And there are things that you are going to get like this. And there are things that you are going to be like, this is really intense. And it also, I think it's a very grounding, character building thing. You know, I've seen kids, and it's often the gifted kids actually, but also like just average functioning kids, where they're so used to doing brilliantly at everything. But the time will come where they fail.
Yeah.
Or the time will come where they struggle and they fall apart because I'm brilliant at everything. They're also told they're brilliant at everything, which is not helpful. And I think to myself, it's such a disservice. It's such a disservice. Like, I want you to be able to, I mean, for me, I don't need my kids to be top of the class. I don't care. I just want them to be able to cope and feel good about themselves. So in Charlie, I'm sure you'll notice, so it's not, funny enough, not everyone's noticed, on the front cover, he only has one arm.
Yes, we noticed that. It was one of the questions I wanted to ask you about.
Yes, and I never mentioned it in the book, not once. Reason being, first of all, it's representative of why shouldn't he? Like, there's plenty of, like, why not, right? And each character there has been thought put into it. So I decided I'm not going to make a thing about the arm because it's part of his identity. But at the same time, the kids are smart. They'll go, hold on a minute. So we read the story and then they go back and they go, oh my goodness, he was struggling and he only has one arm. I'm like, yeah, just saying. Like, you got two. Yes. So I'm just putting it out there. And for me, so the lessons in there were the power of yet, that we don't say the word perfect. I hate that word. In my house, it's like a no-no. We say practice makes progress, because I've always found you say to kids, practice makes perfect, but then at the same time, you also go, nothing's ever perfect. So which is it? Like, what are you trying to explain to them? So I don't use that. So it's the practice. Also, the praise needs to be very specific within a growth mindset. So often, a kid will draw you a picture. Oh my God, you're so brilliant. You're like an artist. That doesn't mean anything. What does that mean? Get specific with them, that effort over outcome, which I love. I love the colors that you use. Look how you planned this pattern. That's wonderful. How did you think about that? Make it specific. Yes. And for me, what these books are also about, but particularly Charlie, when you have a decent self-esteem, which is not based on external validation and affirmation from your environment, and I think a lot of people mistake that, where they go,
one of those.
Oh, well, I did well, now I feel good. No. I was also like that.
No,
I struggle with it sometimes as well. Yeah, I struggle. But at least you were aware of it. Do you know what I mean?
Still quite dense and partially aware. A little bit aware and mostly dense.
You're like a little bit aware. But it's, for me, what I try and explain to my kids is I say to them, it's about feeling good about yourself whether you achieve or not. And I gave an example of, so let's say you've got a test and you didn't do as great in it as you wanted to. There's two ways of looking at it. The fixed mindset is going, I suck, I'm so stupid, what is wrong with me? Brilliant, attack yourself. That's really not going to help. The growth mindset is going, okay, I don't feel so lacquer. I didn't do as well as I wanted to. I think next time I could work harder, and I'll do that. And then you move on. But did you attack yourself? No. Did you engage with that pathological critic in your head? No, because that voice can be very loud if you let it be. So for me, it's about saying my self-worth is not connected to the outside. My self-worth is connected to myself. And I've always said to my husband, you know what? If we can just make sure our kids have decent self-esteem, that they genuinely love themselves, everything else tends to fall into place. They end up trying harder. They end up not giving up. They end up dealing with their worries. They end up accepting their anger anyway because they're not afraid of themselves, essentially. And with Charlie, I find particularly kids now, they're under a lot of pressure. I'm not sure if you experience this with your kids, but mine can also be a little bit of an A-type perfectionist like her mother. And I hate seeing it replicated in her. Actually, it bothers me. Like it's like very, for want of the latest, like it triggers me because I'm going, don't do this to yourself. Don't do this to yourself. But instead of me saying, don't do that, give her the skills and explain why. They are, I always say, like, kids are the smartest people on this planet. The days of they just, what do kids know? They're just children. They're amazing. And if you listen to them, and what's so wonderful now that she's had this narrative in our house about that kind of growth mindset, especially when she reads Charlie, she looked at me yesterday, and I did feel like a bit of a parenting rock star. And you've got to hold on.
You have to take those moments.
She said, I'm feeling so fantastic about myself today. I'm feeling strong in my body. I just feel happy inside, and I really love myself. And it skipped off, and I was like, yes, thank you.
That's amazing.
Because you got to hold on to it. So for me, Charlie was about finding your inner resources, but also saying, I can ask for help. I can ask for help. And now the goose, to get that goose right, I wanted him to look like, I really just, okay,
like this is the goose.
Just leave this. And we worked on that. We worked on that a lot, of how to make him just look lazy. And I feel that he just encapsulates what giving up is about. And again, I love he shrinks after a while. And I love how, and what we did, I'm sure you saw, where we highlighted him riding the bike, and Charlie's riding his bike finally, and then you've got Gary's little, what do you call the feet of a goose? I actually don't know what you call them. I don't know, goose feet. Also riding a bike. Whatever, I don't know.
Trying to find that page. I think it's this one.
That book actually took me, yes.
This one.
Yes. That book took me particularly longer.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because the growth mindset, the growth mindset is something that I love, but you don't want to be like, don't give up, keep trying. Like, that doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't really mean much.
So now when the word perfect comes up in our house, my kids will be like, we don't use that word. And I'm like, thank you.
We don't. It's
we
true.
don't. And they'll say, I'm struggling with this. The goose is here. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. So
No, I love that. I mean, just this page, to read it, it says, after their chat, Charlie got on his bike and gave it another go. He didn't rush this time. He took it nice and slow. Yeah, so it's just like really amazing tools to persevere when you're feeling like you actually not only want to give up, you have given up, because it feels like it's the end when you've given up.
Yes, and it also says take a break sometimes. It's fine. Yeah. It's normal to feel like this. You don't have to let it sit there forever, but just take a break. It's fine. And it's normal to feel like this sometimes.
And you're right. I mean, the world that our kids are growing up in is so cray-cray. Like, I'm often standing back and thinking, I wasn't built for this time. I actually need to go back 50 years and live on a farm and milk the cow. The kids can play in the field. We'll collect some eggs.
Yes.
But the fast pace of our life. And then I have to like counsel myself and be like, we're in that culture, so I can't go to the farm right now. Only thing I can do is equip my kid to live in this culture of like busyness, mania, not a culture where you encourage to take a break. So having that as a tool.
That it's like a busy badge that, I've worked myself into exhaustion. I'm like, that's not That's nothing to be proud of, actually. Like, taking a break and resting should actually be an absolute priority, not a reward. Right. It's a priority,
sure.
You know.
Yeah, I've learned a fortune from these books on emotional intelligence. And even though I have read The Growth Mindset, of course, I mean, like, I think most conscious parents have, but it's different to apply it. Like, yes, you pick up a few things, but most of it, the work is all sitting with you. So the most of it, I think, went over my head.
Yes.
And sometimes it's reassuring to think the work sits with you as the parent and there's not something wrong with your kids. But then it's very unreassuring because, like, oh, no, the work all sits with me. I've got to actually do the work now.
Oh, yeah, no pressure. Like, no anxiety attached to that
nothing
whatsoever.
at all. So, yeah, you've done a great job in skilling parents up in this way. Those books are amazing. And the illustrations we've spoken about, but maybe you can just mention a bit more about SINEAD and how you guys work together and the feel you were going for and maybe like your favorites in the books.
There's an illustration in each book that runs the same, and it's where you see them, you see the head of the child and you see the animal in their brain, literally sitting there. I'm pretty sure it's in Charlie. If I just said that and it's not, it'll be super
No, it's okay.
embarrassing.
I think it's this one. Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's there. That's it? That's it. Oh, yes. Thank God, yes. I couldn't remember. So that's there. Toby, it's the same thing. He's in his head. And Susie's also. And so we sometimes replicate. We like to replicate that because it shows that continuity. All the feelings are going to be here or wherever. For me, the drawings just had to be, I know I punt the word whimsical, but some of the books that have stood out in my childhood, I remember the illustrations so beautifully. I know this might sound a bit rude, but like I've seen some illustrations in like some very famous children's books, and I'm like, this does nothing for me. Like this, I don't know, what is this telling me? And like you say, as soon as you see beautiful illustrations, you're going, oh, I love these. Yeah. I love these. And I get so many people asking me, they obviously didn't read the cover, but they'll go, did you do these? I'm like, trust me, if I could, I would. But no, I did not. And she's emotionally intelligent. Like, I needed someone who, looks at the world in that way. And she's so artistic and she can do so many different styles. I can't even tell you how many different styles she can do. And we talk about each one. So there's times I'm like, what do you think? We like brainstorm them. And she'll go, I don't know, do you think maybe that seems a little bit harsh, or this doesn't seem like it's conveying? I'm like, you're right. So it's not like me telling her what to do. We're a team. We're a team because I trust her judgment. We're actually doing another one now. It's called Sasha and the Sad Panda. And it's about letting your sadness rest. You don't have to always fix it. And for example, we start working on the cover, and I wanted this like sad cutie panda. Like if you look on Google, you'll see pictures of sad pandas. They're so cute. But he looked a bit more like he was just sleeping. And I was like, okay, we need to. And she's like, yeah. So we fix it. So we experiment. It takes forever. It really takes forever. But it's worth it.
It's totally worth it.
You want to get it conveying a particular message.
Yeah, it does. And this is the one with the angry bull in his head.
Yes.
You do. Yeah, you feel like a sensation in the front of your head when you are sometimes overwhelmed by emotion and feeling it in a big way, and the thoughts are just the worrying thoughts and things like that. So they're very effective, and often lately my son is commenting on illustrations. I can say I like these illustrations, and I don't like those illustrations. So I think one of the keys to not getting kids to love reading, but facilitating a love of reading is to have books with quality illustrations.
Yes.
And Ashley, you've done so many readings of these books to classes of kids. What kind of feedback do you get from the kids about the books? And you've briefly mentioned feedback from parents, but can you give us some specifics of those two types of feedback?
Sure. It's actually one of my favorite things to do. I love it. And what the best part is, you often go into these schools and they'll go, I've got that copy. Like the one child walked up to me and she said, will you sign it? And I was like, this is so sweet. No, this is so sweet. And she was like, one day when you're famous. I'm like, one day. But they're so sweet. And what I always say to them is I say, right, I'm going to read you the story, whichever one it is. As I need you to listen really, really carefully, because I'm going to ask you some stuff afterwards, and I want to see who was really listening. They're amazing. I'll say, what did Toby do when this was happening? And they'll go, yeah, he got his pillow and he got his. So it's not like too abstract. It's like simple stuff, but they hold on to it. And then what's amazing in the feedback that I get from them, they'll say, you know what also I do when I feel like I want to give up, I do this. I also, and like this is another idea for your book as well. And it's so validating, but it also just makes me feel like these kids are able to actually express themselves. And like you say, the world's, let's just call it like the world is a dumpster fire at the moment. We need this generation to be different. We need them to. And I know some older generations sometimes call them like snowflakes or whatever. And I'm going, no, we need them to actually turn around and be able to advocate for themselves, speak their minds, but also in a way that it doesn't have to be aggressive. It can be a way of going, I'm struggling, and I'm letting you know that I'm struggling. Or it also helps them develop empathy for others. I had a kid, in terms of feedback, I had a kid say to me the one day in therapy, she went, I was reading my Give Up Goose to my friend. I said, yeah. She's like, and then we were discussing it and how she said she didn't realize she actually also had a Give Up Goose. And it's incredible what they come up with. And the feedback is, listen, I'm so lucky. It's overwhelmingly positive. The teachers afterwards are like, I need this resource in my class. I need this to help them when they're having a bad day. And so many of them are like, I'm telling my parents, and it's amazing. I get the most incredible, and I want the feedback from the kids.
That's amazing. I think,
and it's
beautiful. Like you say, it's not to fix our kids' problems, but it's to give them the tools. And I'm looking forward to this one about SAD, because we did go through a stage, it did pass, of like, my son would tell me he was feeling sad, and then you like, you shouldn't be fixing it, like that much, but you don't know what next, like generally.
And you don't want, as a parent, I don't know about you, but I'm like, I want to help you. I want to make it go away. You don't want to see your kid in distress, but at the same time, it can't go away. So like, one of the things I've brought up in this latest one is that all feelings are visitors and they're not meant to hang around forever. But if you spend all your energy trying to fight the feeling going away, number one, it will come back, and it'll come back with a vengeance. It's like almost like putting a plaster over like an infected wound. It's going to come back. And for me, it's about going, okay, sadness is here. All right. So you know what? Just welcome it in. It's here to tell you what you need. It's almost like a superpower. It's here to tell you what you need. It's here to tell you what you care about. And there's a reason it's here. Fine. And often what the book's about is if you sit with it and you're kind to it, eventually you'll find out what you need, and then the sadness will be on its way and it will see itself out. It will go. And the next time it happens, you don't have to be afraid of it, just like any other feeling.
Yes.
And I found, but sadness is particularly difficult for kids and for parents.
I mean, who wants to really see their kid sad? Seeing your kid angry, I feel like it's easier than actually seeing them sad.
Yeah.
And
exactly, because you can almost give these tools.
And I think it's such a paradigm shift from the older view of shut those feelings away, like you're sad, be happy, let's be happy.
Be happy, toxic positivity,
stop crying, big boys don't cry.
Put a smile on your face.
Exactly, all that stuff.
Yes, the
So
usual.
it's a total paradigm shift to like now say, sit with a feeling and get used to doing it, because it's like practice.
And I think, and I think also one of the things I was seeing a lot of, which made me want to do this fourth one, is particularly the last 3 years, kids, like families, have been through a lot, losing loved ones with the pandemic, and just a lot of trauma. And what I find with moms particularly, they'll go, we lost this person. How can I help my child? And I go, firstly, let them grieve, because they are reacting in a way that they should be reacting. And you have to let them go through the process. They cannot go around it, and you cannot go through it for them. What you can do is contain them and make sure that they know that there's this loving, consistent presence with them. And of course, I give them things that they can do to help the child process it. But at the end of the day, that feeling is going to be there, just like any other person who would lose someone. Or I say in the book, like, you can be sad because you've lost someone, or you've lost an object that's really important to you, or all different examples. But the fact is, sadness is there for a reason, and welcome it. Don't push it away.
Ultimately, that sadness is going to give you closure that you need to move on, and without it, you'll never have closure from the grieving. It's like endless grief.
And I think a lot of people, like if an adult loses someone, you're like, well, of course they should be grieving. But with a child, it's like you almost don't want their childhood to be affected. I'm like, but it is going to be affected. it is. This is what happens. And I also find people are scared of it. They're scared of some of these feelings.
Definitely.
It's almost like, well, I don't know how to handle it, so I need it to go away. It's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable.
But you can't. Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. Happiness is so easy to deal with. But everything else, you kind of like, this is not fun. It's
so
not.
I think we've kind of answered the next question I had, which was, how can parents use these books in their toolkit? And is it to read them to your kids and then talk about them? Or what's the kind of, in your mind, the idea of using them as the tool that they are?
So that, like what you've just said, but also talk about it in your home like it's part of the family. So like you said, my hippo's here. My hippo's going to break this fence. It's brilliant because now they're going, okay, I know where mom's at. Talk about the fact my Boris is here. He's the smoke coming out of his nose, or steam, or whatever comes out of a bull's nose, or things like like I used it the other day. I actually said to my daughter was doing her homework, and I could see she was like not loving herself. She was just like, I'm getting annoyed with myself. I was like, is Gary sitting next to you? And she was like, actually he is sitting next to me. And I was like, what are we going to do? She's like, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to take my give up goose with me, and then I'm going to come back and I said, cool. Like, we use it in everyday conversation. It doesn't always have to be this like emotional symposium with your children. Like, let's read the book and talk. Of course you must read the book. It's wonderful. But at the same time, you can go, let's just check. Should we look at it as a reference almost? And use the goose and the bull and the elephant and the panda as but animals and beings that are interchangeable in your family. Make them approachable, because that's what they are. It doesn't have to be fancy.
I like that.
way.
I really like that. I think that's what I was kind of like trying to get at, is how to incorporate it so that it's not just while you're reading, you're focused on that. How do you bring it into your life? And it's just like, because literally these feelings happen every day, all day long. So it's not that difficult to start incorporating it, because at least once a day, Charlie's there. I had Charlie last night. Shame. He was, and then I even said to my husband, like, I think I know that feeling when you've just done your code so many times and you can't anymore, but I'm just going to sit here and try again. It's like, I can't believe I'm talking like this.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's the thing, is for adults as well. I can't tell you how many adults have said to me, I wish I'd had this growing up. I wish I'd had a book like this. So I'm like, me too.
Yeah, so now we do. Too. So we can actually, I'm so grateful for it. Yeah.
And it empowers you. That's the point. You need to be the expert on your kid. You are the expert. And what do experts do? They keep learning. So keep learning.
True. I think you've covered a lot in terms of conversations with your kids. But as a parent yourself and a specialist in child psychology, what are your kind of top recommended conversations that we should be having with our kids, along with the anger and the perseverance and anxiety stuff?
Firstly, how to build self-esteem.
How do you do that, Ashley? Just remind me.
And how to talk to them.
Just a quick one. Sorry, how do you recap that for everyone? Or just for me?
So, like I said, like, make the praise very specific. Always kind of look at them and say, I also sometimes feel like that. If I came to you or a friend came to you and they were struggling, what would you say? And then they switch mindsets and they're going, this is actually what I would say to them to encourage them. And part of the self-esteem conversation is also body image, for example. So I'm a big proponent of like body neutrality, and a person is more than a body. And that body image is not about liking how you look. Body image is acknowledging that your body can do amazing things, whether you like how you look or not. So for me, that's a very important conversation. Obviously, good secrets and bad secrets, and like your safety circle around any kind of good touch and bad touch, huge conversation. And the thing that actually also I'm actually going to be writing about soon is stranger danger. Yeah, you got to let them know what that is, but at the same time, it's not pleasant, but some of the most harmful things that happen to kids, if the majority is from people they know. So what I've started teaching my kids is about like tricky people who you kind of like, I know you and I thought you were supposed to like love me or care about me, but now you're making me feel odd. And I teach them about an uncomfortable feeling. And I was like, I don't care who it's with. If you have that feeling, that's a red flag. That's your alarm bell going off. For me also, I'm very hectic on like gratitude, particularly the world we live in, where it's just, you're just exposed to everything all the time, and this instant gratification and this black hole. It's like never enough. It's never enough. And I've always got to look at like what other people have. And in order to kind of teach your kids to not only be grateful for the big stuff, but the small stuff and how important that is. I'm just trying to think.
No, that's amazing. I want to recap. It was self-worth and self-esteem. So that's when you acknowledge what effort they've put in to achieve something, a product, a process like trumping the product. And then you mentioned,
Sorry, actually also one other thing on that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. One of the things I say with building self-esteem is I say to them, we talk about affirmations. And I say to kids when I do like emotional sessions and stuff at the school, I say to them, do you know who the most important voice that your brain and your heart need to hear is? Yours. And it's so important for the brain and the heart to hear you saying kind words to yourself. And I'm like, it's wonderful when people say lovely things to you, mom and dad and your teacher and people that you love. But actually your voice needs to be the loudest. Your voice needs to be the kindest. And that's another way of building that self-esteem, talking to yourself with compassion. Because I remember when I used to lecture, I did a whole thing on self-esteem with the psychology students. And one of the things we spoke about was the pathological critic, which I think I mentioned earlier, and how loud that voice can get if you give it a platform. Let the kinder voice be louder than that. So that's just another part
I love
of
it. It's superb. Please don't apologize. I mean, I feel like I just got like a free parent coaching session through the podcast. Some perks of running the podcast. So it was self-worth, self-esteem, and to make your kinder voice louder then, because that voice is always going to be there, that critics. But if the kinder one's louder, you're already winning. And then you mentioned body autonomy and body
autonomy and consent,
appreciating your body for the power that it has. And then I like what you're saying, body image. I really like what you're saying about tricky people. I think that's excellent because I've been struggling with this particular one to talk about it with my kids, just to talk to them about there's some people, not all people are very good people, and some people might touch you in a way you don't like, and that's an absolute no. But I practice it with him and his sister. Like we've got the song, My Body's Nobody's Body But Mine. You stick to your body, I'll stick to mine. When they're getting in each other's space and touching in a way they don't like. But it's quite hard to translate that to the outside world. And you do end up saying stranger danger. And actually, sometimes a stranger is going to help you. So now you've stranger dangered everyone.
Yeah, literally.
And you're like stuck somewhere and you need to ask a stranger to phone your mom. I don't know, God forbid. Exactly. And then they're in stranger danger. So I like that.
That's it. And I think we were brought up like the boogeyman comes in a white van and kidnaps you. I'm going, with some sweets. And now I'm going, it's a bit closer to home than that, unfortunately. And it's also about teaching your kids not only self-consent, but to listen to other people and what their body bubbles are telling them. And listening to, I'm even like, I'll say to my kids, like, if you want to hold someone's hand and they say no, the answer is no. You got to respect the no. It doesn't matter what you want. Or and I think it also starts, that body autonomy and consent also starts within your own family. So, I don't know about you, but like when you were growing up, like kiss uncle, blah, blah, hello. And as a kid, sometimes you'd be like, I really don't want to do this. Okay. But at the same time, you were also fed the message of like, don't let this person touch you, or not this particular person, but people touch. And you're going, well, do I or don't I? So what I do is when adults, I don't think they mean it like in a malevolent way, but like you'll often find that there's adult guilt. So like, oh, why don't you want to give me a hug? You've made me so sad. And I'm like, that's your issue. Like, don't put that on this kid. And I'll say, you know what? That's not her intention, but she just doesn't want to, and she needs to do what she's comfortable with her body. And I'll say to her, do you want to rather give a fist pump or a high five? And if she's like, no, I'm like, cool, wave. She's like, hello. And that's enough. That is enough. So it's also about upskilling them to go, I do not need anyone to touch me if I don't want them to, but also I need to listen to other people.
Right.
That's what's important.
I think it is. It's so both ways in that we have to model for them that they, if someone says no, that is that person's no. So that when they say no, they know it's their no. And if their no is overridden, there's something wrong because they've been taught a no is a no.
Yes.
So, thanks. Those are such amazing conversations. I think that there's a few more books in there somewhere.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I should be saying this, but whatever. So I'm currently working on a parenting book. I find that there are many wonderful parenting books out there. They're really, I have some of them. But for me, I don't know about you, but at 9 o'clock at night, I cannot commit to reading 20 pages of a chapter and then looking through, what did he say about this and what did she say? I can't. I physically
and life-shifting change at that hour, I can't do.
Exactly. No, and I also don't want to go through reading about the brain chemistry that then caused. I'm like, no, I can't. So what I'm doing is I'm writing a book on like 1-pager nuggets for parents. So there'll be a topic, like each stage of childhood, toddler, preschool, like tween, adolescence, whatever. And then topics that come up all the time and issues that I get all the time in my practice or just around with my friends, and what to do. So let's say you have a daughter or a son who was talking in a disparaging way about their body. You could go, I'm actually just going to look at the body image thing quickly. And it's tops 2 pages, like tops. So I'm, like a disclaimer in the book is sometimes I need to go into a second page, but like that's it. And it has very much like, this is why it happens, this is what you do. And it's like a reference in a way, but it's written in a very simplistic, approachable way because parents need to know what to do in that moment. Or things like, I just had a fight with my kid and I'm feeling absolutely horrendous and the guilt is consuming me. And then I think to myself, did I just give them a core traumatic memory and damage them forever? Or is it just going to be fine? So how to repair after a rupture. What do I do? And it's just steps. It's steps. So I think, yeah, we'll see how it goes, but that's what I'm in the middle of doing
looking
now.
forward to that one. I was just about to ask you, like, what's next for Poppet Books? You gave a little clue that it was the sad panda. And now you've just given something that I think we will all be so grateful for. And we do live in a world where we do need a lot of information very quickly. I do wish that I had read and could keep on reading these parenting books. But I started reading that Imago one, basically the last time we chatted about this topic on my original podcast. That was, like 3.5 years ago. I'm still in the same place I was.
Yes.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's like the work on yourself is hard. And if I had to, like, become a psychologist in order to parent my kids, I could just never manage it. So I'm looking
Trust me, I don't wanna do that.
some nuggets of information. It'll be torture. It's already, I feel like I've signed up for like 30 years plus of torture just becoming a parent. So like I often have that. I mean, I know it's a negative thought, but honestly, it's like you have these kids and now your heart is just walking out on the street, on the road, just ready to be trampled. And then they're sad or they're angry or...
And you think, so they're sad or the kid's been mean to them and you're like, I have this fantasy of telling that kid off and I can't do that. I've got to upskill my child. I can't do that. And it's, if it makes you feel any better, like, yes, I'm like qualified, but I struggle. I struggle because I don't therapize my kids. I parent my kids. And I have those, I feel like you are never going to feel more vulnerable in your life as to when you are a parent, particularly a parent of young kids. And then the bigger the kids, the bigger the problems. And it becomes so hard. And and I always say to people, just when you think you got it, don't get all arrogant about it. Be quiet. Yes. Be quiet, especially if things are going well. Shut up. Don't jinx it because something's coming. Something's coming.
Brewing.
Be humble.
I also think,
be humble.
And
just be
also,
humble.
like, I don't mean to sound negative and like a victim, but I do feel in this particular day and age, I don't think there's been a more kind of noisy and difficult age in which to raise our kids. Like, compared to previous generations, we have just so much more going on in terms of social media, the internet, body image, competition about the way we look. So I'm really looking forward to that resource. Thank you, Ashley. We need it. Like I said, we are ready to consume as parents this stuff.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you don't therapize your kids and you parent your kids. So how do you manage to do it all, being the mom, the writer, you even lectured and running your private practice and working with the schools? What's your secret, Ashley? Yeah. Tell us, please.
That sometimes I drop balls. And a friend actually said to me the other day, she said that she'd read this beautiful phrase, I actually need to look it up, where sometimes you're juggling plastic balls and you're juggling glass balls. And in order to prioritize, you need to juggle the balls that are not going to break first, juggle the plastic balls first. So I try and tell myself that. There's times where I'm like, I'm on this, like I got this. And then there's times where I don't got this. And I also get overwhelmed by the admin of life, just life admin. It's a lot. And for me, one of the reasons I also wanted to do this career is so that I could be there for my kids and have the time. I make my own time, but it's difficult. It's difficult juggling. And one of the things I will say, being a therapist and a mom, no one prepared me for how that kind of juxtaposition can be incredibly, incredibly difficult. So if it makes you feel any better, I'm very hard on myself. And to a point that I actually went back to my own therapy to deal with it, to be like, I just want to mess my kids up in a normal way, not in a therapist way, because that's a totally, like, I'm not going to be Melanie Klein, like, I'm just going to, like, just a normal way. I just want them to have the normal issues with me. My nightmare is that they turn around and go, yeah, well, my mother's a therapist, so you can, like, only imagine. And I'm like, no, please don't. So I do all those things because it helps with my experience in working with people. When you're in a school environment, when you're writing books, when you've got your practice, I don't like to be isolated. I want, and I love working in a multidisciplinary team. It's very important to me. Yeah, it's just continuous education.
I think that is where all the so-called experts, I know you didn't like that word, but the people who are really becoming the best experts are the ones who are working multidisciplinary. So if they're in history, they're also looking at psychology, and they're also looking at biology. So it's like you can't help but actually have a multidisciplinary thing if you want to, like, succeed in your area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's hard and it's exhausting, but you got to do it. My favorite thing is, like, I work with a few OTs in my practice. My favorite thing is, like, they'll come to me and go, listen, what do you think is going on here? And then there's other times I'll go to them and go, is this sensory? What is this? Help me. I don't know. Because I also feel like I've got my scope. I'm very passionate about everybody stay in their lane. So I don't like, if I feel that something is beyond my scope, I'm going to refer you, and I'm going to refer you to the best person, because I would be doing you a disservice. And I'm very specific about that. I can't stand that kind of, I can do everything. You cannot. I don't care who you are, and I don't care how many degrees you have, and I don't care how brilliant you are. You can do the things that you do. If you want to upskill yourself, great. But don't take on things to kind of satiate that professional ego. Say, this is not, I'm being a responsible clinician, and that's my whole thing. I'm very, very
and it also, I mean, it's matching skills with experience, like having the theoretical skills, but also to go to the person who's got experience in that. So that does make a lot of sense. And then also, you're also staying in South Africa, clearly. You've got your family here and everything. So I always, in my podcast, I'm asking all my great South African talented guests, what's keeping you here as well, and what hope do you see for us and our kids, really, in this country?
So I love this country. I'm actually a very patriotic South African. Like, when there's sports events, like, I get very emotional. And when they stand up and sing the anthem, I'm like, yes. I love this country. I've always loved this country. I've been privileged enough that this country has given me a beautiful life. I'm not naive. I know how difficult, I know cognitively sometimes how difficult things are not on the ground. I'm not going to pretend that I do. I feel, my personal feeling, and I know a lot of people would disagree, is that what I can give my kids right now in this country, I actually don't believe I'd be able to, number one, afford, and number two, replicate it anywhere else. So the thing is, like, the access to the medical care that we've got, if you're on, like, private healthcare, which we are so privileged to have. You know, my kid gets sick, I phone the doctor, I go and see the doctor the same day. We don't sit and wait for 3 days and wait for it to get worse. Access to, they can have extramurals, things like therapies. My child's in OT and speech at the moment, she needs it, but it's not something impossible. It's all accessible for us. And I also find, if you talk to other professionals, very interesting, that are in Australia or in the UK or whatever, they're like, South African therapists, OTs, speeches, whatever, they have such a different way of working in terms of, like, not just like collaboration, but just a sense of the way things are done here, we take for granted. It's not the same everywhere else. It's not. Look, I don't know what the future is going to hold. And I have the same anxieties as everybody else, and the same doubts. And some days I feel more despondent than others. But for now, I'm going, well, I'm here right now, and I'm going to focus on the things I can control. So I can't control the potholes, but I can control avoiding it and not driving like an idiot. I can't control that. I can't control load shedding. It just adds another another layer of admin. Brilliant. But I'm going to focus on what I can control, because otherwise you are going to have this, like, existential anxiety and dread. And I'm not saying you must put your head in the sand, but I also think we are so inundated with information. You actually have to be very mindful about what you choose. I haven't listened to the radio in my car. I can't even tell you in how long.
Yeah,
I won't. A parent said to me the other day, how do you, like kids pick up stuff on the radio when you're listening? I'm like, I don't listen to the radio. We have a Spotify playlist. Each of them have their own playlist. And we, like, What are we listening to today? Start the day with joy. Why must you listen to why? And if you want to consume stuff, be mindful about it. There's certain things I will not consume. When I became a parent, and I can't read this anymore. Can't do it. I can't. It's too difficult. So, I mean, I don't think it's groundbreaking advice, but that's just what I tell myself.
It is so groundbreaking because it's authentic. And coming from another parent who's living in South Africa, it's authentic for all of us. And I mean, I also stopped listening to the news, I think about 12 years ago, to the point where someone asked me the other day, did you hear the sonar? And I was like, what sonar? I thought she was talking about like bat sonar. And she was talking about the State of the Nation address. And I mean, of course I listen to it because I do not consume any news at all. I'm so much happier for it. And I don't have to worry about my kids hearing something like, they do hear enough stories about crime and violence. We don't have to have that in the car on the way to where we're going. We've also just taken on Spotify playlists for the kids, which is amazing. Start your day with something pumped up and positive. Yes. And
in fact, what I want to tell you is this resource.
Tell me about a resource.
Snoop Dogg, the genius. He has done like kids stuff. So if you look up on Spotify, I think it's called Snoop Dogg affirmation song. It's so cool. So it's not like this annoying voice of like, love yourself or whatever. It's Snoop Dogg rapping, and it's affirmations that kids can say to themselves. So we listen to Snoop Dogg in the car, and then my kids will say, I'm going to pick one for the day. And they go off into their day like that. I can't control how their day is going to go, but I can certainly give some positivity.
You can set up for a good day, even if it doesn't happen.
Exactly. And I think the only other thing I'd say, I've just thought about it now about the South Africa thing, is I don't think anywhere in the world right now is particularly glorious, to be honest with you, because if you do read a little bit, it's not just little things. There's some big, and I'm not going to get into the whole political landscape, but like there's nowhere in particular that I look at and I go, can't wait to get on a plane. I'm just kind of like, yes, I'd like our basic things to be sorted out, like electricity and water. That would be nice. But I just feel like I have to have hope and I have to have faith because I'm living here right now.
That's it.
And I refuse to get myself into a state of
like literally
despair.
You cannot control the load shedding. Like literally.
No.
So you just work around it. And I just think, we're quite amazing as South Africans. You mentioned the therapists and the way they give their therapy. I think around the world, South Africans are sought after in workplaces for the quality
very
of work
much so
that we do. And we've
and the quality of our education as well.
We do. We have got an exceptionally educated
very much so.
Group of skilled people. And even the ones who are less skilled, we have like a good energy, I think, in ourselves as South Africans, like a bit of a camaraderie that we're all going through this thing.
And we all just we'll say, I got stuck in traffic. Oh, what time of load shedding was it? Yeah. Or I just hit a pothole. How's your tire? Like it's just, we just adapt and get used to things. Is it fair that we should always have to adapt and get used to things? No. But at the same time, well, what else are you going to do?
We're becoming
what else resilient. Are you supposed to do?
In one of my vlogs, I mentioned that in terms of mindfulness, I've just got this one mantra to be grateful for what I do have. Like, I may not have electricity all the time, but I have got electricity some of the time. I've got gas stove and other things. And it's helping me in other ways. Like I may not have all the things I want, but I've got some of the things I want. So it's...
yes, and a lot of them are the most important. You know, my son at school, he's turning 4, and his teacher, who's just... This chick is a child whisperer. Like this chick, I'd like look at her, I'm like, I just want to learn from you. And she teaches them about load sharing.
Oh, I love it.
So one day he came home and he's like, load sharing. And I'm like, just explain to me, because I thought, is he like messing up the word? Like, what's he... He went, no, the one school sometimes needs to borrow our electricity, so they have it for a little bit of time, and then they give it back to us. And he goes, because sharing is caring, and we load share. And I was just like, it's beautiful.
I do like that load sharing.
I love it.
I really do. I'm actually going to start using it. I'm going to say it's so sweet. Because now when the lights go off, my daughter's only 2. Anytime the lights go off, she goes, load shedding.
Yes.
So I'll change
it.
Yeah,
literally. Only South African kids. Any other kid around the world is going, what?
Yeah.
South Africans like, what do you mean? No, I know. I think that's also what contributes to our sense of humour, quite frankly.
And we also, so load sharing is great. I'm going to take that from the child whisperer and thank her from me. And on the subject of good advice, what advice would you share with us that you've received and that you would, in your career or your life, and some that you would give our listeners, and maybe also what you would tell your 20-year-old self if you could go back to her? Although she made some good decisions on this, studying the career she wanted to.
Sometimes she did. She didn't always make good decisions, which I suppose is part of it. I would actually say, I say this a lot actually to my adolescent clients, I would say people are not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. And do not live your life based on somebody else's perspective or opinion of you, because you will never learn and you will never grow. And I think I would say that to my 20-year-old self, because you're so concerned about what everyone thinks, and it can be absolutely debilitating. And I think one of the gifts of getting older, like I'm sitting here at 37, I'm like, I don't care. And not to say I walk around, I care if I hurt someone, of course I do, but I'm also kind of going, okay, but not everyone's going to like me. That's totally fine, because I don't like everyone either. That's absolutely fine. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Whereas when you're growing up, you're like, why doesn't this person like me? And you get so obsessed with it. Another thing, I'm a big proponent of, the Dalai Lama talks about the wise selfish concept. And what it basically means is that you don't walk around being selfish, but if you look after yourself the most, and you do what is authentic and healthy for yourself, you'll have a lot of love to give everybody else. So put yourself first, again, in a reasonable way, but you are the most important person in your life, because none of your relationships can flourish unless you actually love yourself. You won't have anything else to give. So it's about, I think the minute you stop caring about what other people think, it's so freeing. It's so freeing, and it's like it gives you this like inner peace. Say no.
Say no more often. Yeah.
Say no.
I actually saw a beautiful meme.
And you don't have to give a whole justification. Sometimes you just go, thank you so much, but I won't be doing any of that. That's from Schitt's Creek.
Yes, best show ever.
But thank you so much. The best and like my favorite is when they go, so that is not a journey that I think is very good for myself.
I love it.
But I love it. It's just like I won't be doing any of that. Thank you so much. And I actually said that to someone on a PTA. I've got, when like PTAs are amazing. I just don't want to be on the PTA. And, when they'll ask you for stuff and it's like, will you volunteer to do? And I just went, thank you so much, but no. And they were like,
yes.
What do you mean no? And I just said, why can't you do it? I went, I just don't want to. I just don't want to. I'm just being honest. I just don't want to. And they kind of go, okay. Yes. I'm not being rude. I'm just like, I just fundamentally don't want to. I'm not going to think of a whole
experience. There should definitely be a meme from Schitt's Creek that you can just send back in your response of like, no.
Yes.
No, because saying no is really hard.
No, thanks so much, but no.
Hard.
I'm like, to a point that my husband will say to me, he'll ask me something, he goes, if you say that this is not a journey that you're willing to take for yourself, I don't want to hear it. I'm like, how did you know? It's just, and that's it. Like, I think also when you are feeling really depleted, it must be a hell yes or a hell no, not just a yes or a no. What are you capable of giving, and feel okay about it. You don't have to.
It is one of those boundaries, and it goes back to the skills we're trying to give our kids. We're trying to give them the ability to set boundaries, but I think we as parents and moms and people in the modern world struggle with this boundary setting thing. I mean, it's even a foreign concept most of the time, but we want them to have it. So it goes back. We've got to do the work. Oh, so much work, Ashley.
It's exhausting. No, my God. Oh, my God. When I hear about parents like they have a newborn and I'm like, I just start laughing. And they, the thing is, I wish someone had told me. I wish someone had said to me, everything is a phase. Just you're going to get through the next phase and then there'll be another phase. Even when you're in a very difficult phase, it helps to think of it that way because it is not permanent. And I know for me, I hated the newborn phase more than anything. I just really didn't enjoy it. And I wish someone had said that to me. And I know it sounds obvious, but I literally thought to myself, what have I done with my life?
No, my husband and I often,
particularly with my purse, because I don't know any better.
We look at each other and we're like, where did we sign up for that? Like, I don't remember signing up for this. I didn't sign up for years of mucus, did I? Or all this emotional work. Like, I don't remember signing up for it. Now I've got to do it.
And when people say, but this is, what I love, they're like, well, this is what you signed up for. And I'm like, did I though, Cheryl? Did I sign up for him sticking his feet in my face and vomiting? I mean, I signed up to be a parent. Did I sign up for emotional abuse from a toddler all day? Like, what did I sign up for this? It's hilarious.
I'm often asking myself that question. Yeah, but like now that we've signed up for it, I'm like, I have no choice but to kind of try my best and do the work and also equip myself. Like, just equipping yourself is the most empowering thing. And I highly recommend these books to everyone.
I wish I had a Susie
that's okay.
copy.
You know what?
I'm
We'll
so sorry.
include it in the slides when the podcast gets published. We're going to have the slide of Susie anyway. So
brilliant.
Thanks, Ashley.
Brilliant.
Thank you for your time and for
your
nuggets of therapy, which I was consuming like ravenously. I'm like, what do you say about self-worth? And how do you do that thing? Okay, I'm just going to take some notes.
Please just remember that I don't always get it right within myself.
Yeah, but that's
Please
great
just
to
remember
know that
I
you're
do not,
human.
And
I think we
don't.
look at...
I am, and I will say this. I have a lot of people that say to me, parents particularly, that come see me, they go, do you practice what you preach? And I went, yes. I say that like unreservedly. Positive parenting, conscious parenting, whatever you want to call it, I practice that because I'm not going to tell you to do it with your kids and I'm not going to do it with mine. And I see the difference. I do. I really do. I'm going to parent the way I advocate parenting. It's so important. Otherwise, you're not going to believe
anything. You see the rewards
I say.
When your daughter skips off and says, I love myself, I'm so happy. I mean, is there anything more beautiful than hearing your kids say that? Like, I think it's a gift to them for their whole life. And if you love yourself, you'll follow your passions and you'll persevere because you love what you do. So it's like the one thing, I think that's amazing. So thanks for sharing with us. Thank you for writing the books. And keep them coming. We are so keen for this stuff. Keep them coming. And I just wish you good luck. And just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending this time with me. I love getting to know my listeners. So please do subscribe to my YouTube channel and on your chosen podcast app. Engage with me in meaningful conversation on my comment-friendly blog. And send me an email to share your self-directed life story. My website address is thefree2becuriouspodcast.com and my email address is carla@free2becurious.com. I really look forward to getting to know you.